Things are so bad out there for progressives that a leftist magazine is now calling for liberal Democrat states to secede from the Union. In this video, we're going to take a look at that call, how it actually proves that nationalist populism is winning everywhere, and why political secession may indeed be the new normal for the foreseeable future. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone, patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. If this is your first time here with us and you're looking for some daily encouragement and optimism as well as analysis to help you make sense of these crazy times we're living in, then you have found your oasis in this channel. We post 2 videos a day analyzing current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends so we can all live in the present in light of even better things to come. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It's been an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel where each and every day we together celebrate, yes, the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism, even its secession, and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Before we dive into things here, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's our good friends over at BioTrust. You know, with the rapid advances in science over the years, there really are much more powerful ways to boost your immune system than just taking mega doses of vitamin C. In fact, our sponsors over at BioTrust have combined 4 of the world's best immune supporting powerhouses along with that mega dose of vitamin C into their #1 immunity support product, Ageless Body. Simply put, Ageless Body provides you 5 of the most powerful immune support ingredients available. I take it every day and I love it. And if you click on that link below today, you can now get Ageless Body at their lowest price ever, 51% off with free US shipping to boost. So what could be better? Click on that link or go to agewithsteveturley.com and give your immune system an awesome boost today. All right, let's dive right in here. One of the things that we've been arguing over the last few weeks is that the left really is panicking. At least the more astute members of the left recognize that 2020 feels like 2016 all over again. The polls appear to be radically deviating from what's actually happening in terms of massive voter enthusiasm and who is and will be turning out to vote. And that's the Achilles heel of all opinion polls. They simply cannot accurately predict who's going to actually come out and vote. And 2016 was a case study in just such a radical flaw in opinion polling. So what we're beginning to hear among leftists are more and more calls for liberal states to actually secede from the Union. And the latest comes from the ultra-left website, The Nation. Now, we've featured them before on other videos, but the piece that they published just the other day really is quite revealing. It's entitled, "Should the United States Stay United?" And it's a conversation with The Nation writer and contributor Richard Kreitner, who recently authored a book entitled Break It Up: Secessionism, Division, and the Secret History of America's Imperfect Union. And what Kreitner basically argues is that secession is not something that's specific to Southern slave owners like what we saw in the 19th century, nor is it specific to Texan nationalists like what we're seeing now with Texas advocates, but rather it's something that's highly relevant for the disaffected progressives who are increasingly recognizing that the Electoral College looks like it's going to favor the nationalist populist right for the foreseeable future. And so it's fascinating to read. It's an interview because this fellow Kreitner's reasoning is actually rooted in what he considers more or less a sanctified vision of secession that he found advocated by abolitionists, those who wanted to end slavery, who actually wanted the northern states to secede from the Union in the 1840s and 1850s as a way not merely to protest slavery, but to end it decisively. And so he thought to himself, you know, when Trump won back in 2016, he as a progressive was like, wow, is a country that elects Trump possibly worth saving? Is a country that elects a guy like Donald Trump even worth trying to save? I mean, that's obviously quite the glimpse inside the mind of a leftist liberal today. Now, as the Patriot Hill points out, obviously this kind of thinking on the political left is not new. Right after Trump was elected, there was a surge of interest in states like California about possibly leaving the Union. And as this interview underscores, those sentiments among leftists have only increased over the last 4 years. And I've got to say, what's so fascinating reading through this interview, because it really is stunning just how disaffected leftist liberals have become over the last 4 years, they really do increasingly see the federal government, after decades of liberal activism, particularly from the Supreme Court, they really do believe the federal government is their enemy today, especially in light of the fact that Amy Coney Barrett is about to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is the patron saint of the left. And so the solution to this, particularly for this fellow writing for The Nation, the solution that's being increasingly discussed among leftists is, and I kid you not, the solution is, it's a return to a kind of localism where small is better, where small is beautiful, where progressive ideals could take root far more effectively in localized and intentional communities rather than massive federalized bureaucracies. Now, I say believe it or not because the whole movement towards localism and community and the like has tended to be the disposition of the right, especially in light of 8 years of Obama. But as we're seeing here, even the left has now rediscovered the beauties of localism. But localism, as we know, localism is associated with traditionalism, particularly our cultural traditions that we receive as part of our civilizational inheritance. The problem here is left-wing liberalism, by definition, cuts itself off from that inheritance. It wanted to usher in a brave new world of unending progress and advancement. Tradition is generally for knuckle-dragging conservatives. So, frankly, good luck on trying to implement a sustaining intentional community when the very traditionalist foundations for such a successful endeavor have been completely undermined by your leftist ideological pre-commitments. Now, I find this call to secession interesting and enlightening for at least two different yet interrelated reasons. What I find so interesting here is that first and foremost, you'll notice that it appears now that virtually everyone, both on the right and the left, virtually everyone now is calling for the federal government to get smaller. So for you libertarians out there, this is an amazing development here, right? Left-wing secessionism is by its nature, by definition, it entails a radical relativization of the power and influence of the federal government. So it's appearing that both left and right are starting to agree on some basic principles that have come to characterize the nationalist populist right. Everyone now is calling for border control, right? Especially in light of the pandemic. No one is saying we need to ship our manufacturing and industry overseas so that Beijing can have a monopoly over the production of our pharmaceuticals. I mean, those days are over, man. And now we're beginning to see the mass acceptance of radically limiting the power of the federal government on both the right and the left. It's very, very interesting stuff. So we really are beginning to see the basic principles of nationalist populism becoming what some call meta-political, meaning that they're becoming the bedrock principles of both the new political right and the new political left. Remember the most ironic part of the whole Chaz autonomous zone experiment in Seattle, as hilarious as it was, but do you remember the first thing they set up when they announced their independence, right? What's the first thing they set up? They set up a border wall. So it is awesome to see our basic political principles becoming, our nationalist populist principles becoming meta-political here. But this left-wing call for progressive liberal Democrat states to secede from the Union touches on a broader and even more significant issue. But first, I want to make sure you know that we are offering for limited time promotion my Nationalist Populist book bundle. For a limited time, you can get 5 of my best books on the rise of nationalist populism all over the world. So we're talking my book, The New Nationalism, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future here. We got The Return of Christendom up there, The Triumph of Tradition, Uprising on the Yellow Vest Populist Revolt. All you have to do is click on that link below in the pinned comment section and you can get a coupon for 30% off all 5 books. You even get the option to get some swag as well, like our Turley Talks tumbler. So don't wait, just a few days left to click on that link below and get 30% off our Nationalist Populist book bundle today. All right, so this leftist call for Democrat states to secede is indicative of a much more significant development that's going on in our world. And that's the issue of how the world really is more and more breaking up into multiple puzzle pieces, where more and more nations and more populations within nations are demanding their own political sovereignty. So I'm often asked when I do interviews on talk radio, what do I think is the most important question facing us today? Not just as a nation, but as a world. And for me, the crucial question is one of the potential for mass balkanization. Look at this poll. This is from Zogby Analytics, taken just a couple of years back. Secessionist sentiment remains a plurality among likely voters. The poll found that over 40% of Democrats supported the right of individual states to break away from the federal government to form their own country. For Republicans, it was around 35%, which is still a substantial number. And when I read polls like this, as well as leftist calls to secession, I think we have to keep our eyes on the bigger picture here. We have to remember that we're living in a time of mass worldwide balkanization. The world is becoming more and more characterized by populations turning toward their own culture and their nationalism, secessionism, balkanization. Since 1991 and the fall of the Soviet Union, over 35 nations have been added to the world map, from Lithuania to Bosnia, Chechnya, Rwanda and Burundi, Scotland, most recently Catalonia. Populations have been turning increasingly inward for civic and cultural identity. And just as we saw with movements such as Texit and Calexit and the Second Vermont Republic, right, grow out of the success of Brexit, we should not imagine that we here in the States are sequestered from these secessionist tendencies. Scholars have argued that such national and cultural balkanization is the consequence of the collapse of modernity in our time. And again, we've talked about this on our channel many times. Modernity is the notion that rationality, particularly scientific rationality, is the one true way of understanding reality for all people, times, and places. And thus, scientific rationalism and its globalist spawn, as it were, serves as the sole objective social order, the one true political and economic system for all populations throughout the globe. And this view, which was so dominant in the 20th century, this notion that scientific rationalism is the one true way of understanding all of reality for all peoples, times, and places, that vision has utterly collapsed philosophically in the hearts and minds of Westerners. We in the West today are characterized by a postmodernist conception of the world that values diversity, pluralism, multiculturalism, and yes, as it turns out, secessionism. And so as the globalist standardized meta-narrative breaks down, we're finding that nations are beginning to break up into smaller social orders, oftentimes into smaller ethnocracies, like we saw with the Balkans in the 1990s, or what Ukrainian nationalists have been arguing for, Scottish nationalists, or Catalonians, or Kurds, and on and on and on. These secessionist movements can be construed really as a series of ruptures to the modernist globalist world order that do in fact threaten the existence of previous nation-state-based, as it were, partitions. The world is indeed entering into a phase in which centripetal processes will dominate, and all the rhetoric celebrating the climax of a one-world globalist age is absolutely helpless in stopping this. Just ask French President Emmanuel Macron. And I don't think the United States is immune from these centripetal processes, as the latest secessionist calls by leftists underscores. And they're only going to get worse if President Trump wins re-election. So we'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop here. But make no mistake, the world is indeed becoming more and more nationalist, more and more populist, even to the point of potential mass secession. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on how President Trump is standing up for the Proud Boys as militia membership surges throughout the nation. You are not going to want to miss that. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.